Hey there, and welcome to today's 30-minute Rentman demo session. My name is Tim, and I'll be showing you 3 of the main modules you can find in your Rentman account. If you have any questions after this demo, please feel free to check out our support center. You can find it at support.rentman.io. Again, that's support.rentman.io, or feel free to reach out to our support team. You can email them by emailing to support@rentman.io. Again, that's support@rentman.io. Let's get started. We're going to start off in the Projects tab right here. In the Projects tab, you're going to find all of upcoming projects in the selected period of time. Right now, what we've chosen to view is the calendar. In this calendar, we can see all jobs that are happening within the selected period of time. We don't have to use the calendar view here. We could also go for something like the list view of projects. Simply select once here. Or if you would like to see another view, we could also go for something like a timeline view, which is essentially a Gantt chart in which we're going to see all projects that are happening within a selected period of time up here. In addition to the view that we can change, we can also work with filters here. Let's, for example, say we don't want to see all of our projects. We only want to see the ones that have been confirmed already. So what we can simply do is go down here, click on the plus right next to the filters option, and then we can directly choose which filter we would like to work with. You can see that there's a variety of filters to choose from. You could say that you only want to see projects that have been confirmed already. You could also go and say, hey, I only want to see projects where I still have open tasks. It really depends what projects you would like to see. If we now select that we only would like to see projects that are confirmed, we select the respective filter, add it to the view, and you're directly going to see that it's going to clean up the timeline view that we have chosen right here. As a next step, we're going to start with a new project. Let's switch back to the calendar view. So let's say you would like to start a new project. How do we approach this step? Essentially, there's 3 ways in Rentman how you can start a new project. The first way is to duplicate an existing project. Let's, for example, say you've had a project happen last year, last month, and the same is happening again next year or this month. We can now simply pick a project in our calendar or in our list view. Let's, for example, go with our high school dry hire project down here. We select it. And then we simply go up here, click on the More Actions button, the one with the 3 dots, and select Duplicate. If we click on that, it's going to create an exact clone of the project that we have chosen. We can select a new start date, and we have all information in that new project already. Again, this is supposed to help you so you don't have to start from scratch every time you start with a new project. You can make some changes to that clone project and directly send out that quote whenever you're ready. Of course, you're not always going to have a project that fits what you're looking for, and you're not always going to have projects in the beginning that you can duplicate. In that case, what we want to do is we would like to go up here and click on the Add button. Once we click on that button, there's 2 ways that we can start a project. The first way to start is with a project template. The second way to start is with a blank project. Blank projects are essentially clean slates. There is no information in there yet. You can start fresh and enter all the information that you would like to have in there. Project templates, on the other hand, can be set up by you. And these are essentially templates like you can find them in any other software. Projects with pre-entered information, things like a default time schedule that you have, templates with pre-entered equipment packages that you, for example, have for a 2-day production. Again, these templates you can set up yourself, and they're supposed to help you get to that quote a lot faster because you don't have to enter every piece of information from scratch in the beginning. In today's demo, we're going to start with a blank project simply because I want to show you the full process of entering information. So let's get started with that. Select blank project down here, and you're directly going to see is that we're entering a new tab, and we'll now be able to enter all information in a certain order. What we would like to do first is enter general information about the project that we're about to start. We can then move on to add the equipment that is required in this project. We can then move on to add the types of crew and transport that are required for this job. We can then move on and add additional costs if there are any. Think about hotel or transport expenses here. And then in the financial tab, that's where we're going to see an overview of costs, revenue, profit, and profit margin. And please be aware that the financial module, that's also the place where you can then send the actual quote or a contract or an invoice whenever you're ready. So let's get started by entering some basic information about this upcoming project. First of all, let's choose a name for it. I'm just going to go very simple here and enter some basic information. Let's just call this September Event 2019. Afterwards, we can choose the status of this project. Now, by default, a project always starts out as a concept. Once we have sent out our quotation by email from within the Financial tab, it will then automatically switch to Option. If we choose to include the digital signature button on our quotes that allows clients to sign quotations online and the quote is signed, it will then directly jump to Confirmed. What that means is that the process from concept to confirmed is completely automated if you choose to include the digital signature button on your quotations. However, as you can see, you can still choose each status manually here as well. Afterwards, you could potentially choose if your project and the equipment in it are packed, on location, or returned. These three statuses can be chosen here. However, usually these three statuses are what you would get to in the warehouse module. You book your gear out into your prepping area, it will be marked as packed here. You book your gear out onto the show, it will then be on location. And once you book your gear back in the warehouse, it will then be shown as returned right here. Again, you can do so in the warehouse, or you can also do it right here. Moving on. As a next step, we can choose our client. If we have worked with the client before, they're most likely going to be in our contact database down here already. So let's just type in a name and say the client in this project is going to be us, it's going to be Rentman. So we simply type in the name of the company. If we have not worked with the client before, not a problem. We can also just hit the plus button right here, add the new client's details. By doing that, we directly add them to the contact database and also make them the client in this project. In this case, we're just going to go with Rentman. There we go. As a next step, we're going to choose a location for this project. So which venue are we going to work at? Again, simply type in the venue if you've worked there before. If it's a new venue, hit the plus button over here. In this case, let's just go with something called Wow Music that we already have in our database. There we go. Okay, a few more details we can enter here. First of all, the project type. Project types are completely customizable in Rentman, which means that what you're looking at right here are simply some examples that we already have in our demo database that I'm working with here. Project types are supposed to help you differentiate between the different types of projects that you're working on. Let's say you, for example, work on corporate events, you have events that are festivals, tours. These are all things that you can enter under configuration project types, and then you can simply choose which project type you have happening in this case. With each project type, you can, for example, associate a color. You can see that if I switch from production here to band, you can directly see it switches to green, or if I switch to sale, it's directly going to be in red. That way, you can have a visual overview in your calendar, so you will have a color-coded overview of which types of projects are happening each month, each week, and it's going to help you differentiate between those different types of jobs. In addition to that, we can also enter an external reference. Let's say you're working with a bigger production company and they have given you a PO number or something along those lines, and you still want that to pop up on your quotes or on your invoices. Just enter an external reference here, and they're going to pop up on your documents as well. Moving on further down here, time schedule. The time schedule is pretty much the most important part of any project. If you start off with a blank project, there's two times that are pre-entered here, the usage and the planning period. Let me briefly explain what these mean. Now, the usage period is a time when your client will actually use the gear, which is the time that you will charge your client for. So that's what the price for the gear is based on. The planning period, on the other hand, that's used to calculate your equipment's availability. So that's from when it becomes unavailable, so when you pull it, until it becomes available again. So let's briefly fill out some information here. Let's say, I think our event is happening in September. Let's say the actual event is happening on the 25th of September, and it's going to start at 8 a.m. and it's going to last until the 25th at 4 p.m. I think we're okay with that. However, we need to deliver the equipment a day in advance. So let's here choose the 24th, and let's say, okay, our gear goes out on the 10 a.m., excuse me, and it's going to come back not on the 25th, but a day later on the 26th at 1 p.m. So by doing that, we're telling Rentman when the gear is actually being used, so on which the price should be based. And we're also telling Rentman when is the gear actually becoming unavailable, which is at 10 a.m. on the 24th, and when is it becoming available again? That's one day later on the 26th at 1 p.m. Now, I understand that the terminology your company might be using is a little bit different than what we have in here. It's not a problem. We can also simply go over here and change usage period to something else, and we can also directly adjust the planning period to have a different name. Now, of course, there's other times that are relevant for your job. Think about things like load-in time, load-out time, setup time, strike time. All of these things might be relevant for the job, and you might want to add them to your time schedule as well. By doing that, you can build one comprehensive time schedule that has all important times for a job in one place, and that place being right here. To add a new time, it's pretty straightforward. Simply go down here, enter the name of the time that you would like to add. And then over here, you can associate the times that this is happening. So for example, for our load-in, let's say the load-in is actually happening on the 24th as well. So we're going to go back to September, choose the 24th, and then we could, for example, say, well, we're going to start the load-in at 10:30 a.m. and it's going to last on the 24th until, let's simply say it's a quick one, 11:30 a.m. as well. There we go. To add that time to our time schedule, simply hit the plus button to make it part of it. There we go. And now we've already built a better time schedule. There's a few more details that I would like to mention here that can help with the general setup of a project. First of all, the notes section. This is super helpful because you can add any information that might be relevant for this job that you want the client to see or that you want your employees to see. Simply go down here, enter whatever you want to add it to your project. One thing that you can do with notes, which is going to be essential in improving your communication, is that with every note that you've added, you can simply go over here, click this button, and then click on Edit. Once you've clicked on that, a new window opens up, and you can choose, okay, who should I communicate this note to? So who should see it? I can here choose if I would like to communicate this note to my client to display it on contracts and quotations. This way, my client is going to see it if it's relevant for him or her. In addition to that, I could also say, well, this note is only relevant for my warehouse staff. So I simply go over here and choose display in warehouse. So only my warehouse staff is going to see this particular note that I've added. So you can choose who to communicate which note to. If I would like to add more information to this project, I can also go over here and open the widget section by clicking this button. In the widget section, there's a few more details that I can enter. First of all, I can attach files. You can pretty much attach any file here that you think is relevant. Think about floor plans, CAT files, anything really that you think is relevant for this job. The nice thing about attaching files in Rentman is that when you are out on site or one of your employees is out on site, they can simply whip out their phone, open the Rentman app, open the project that they're working on, and directly access the files that you've attached at the office earlier on. They can download the files on their phone, and they directly have them available even when they're out on site. So great way to communicate with the people. In addition, when we're talking about communication, the task module is something that we shouldn't forget. If there's certain things that need to be done for this project, things that you don't really want to add into the time schedule because they're not that big, we can go up here and add a task to the project. Simply hit the plus button to add a task, let the window load, and then we can directly go in here and say add a task. Let's, for example, say we need to do a little bit of location scouting. We're going to type in the name of this, scout out location. There we go. We can set a deadline for every task. Let's say this needs to happen until the 20th. And then we can also choose to show this note, or excuse me, this task to every crew member, or we can also assign it to specific crew members by choosing this option right here. So let's go for that. Let's say specific crew members. I can assign that task to myself, but I can also assign it to multiple crew members at the time. Then I can add some more information down here. I can also tag it and add notes, and then simply hit the save button to add that note, to add that task to my project. Now, of course, if we add a task to someone and to a project, we would also like to have people notified about this. To help with that, we have built a notification system that is directly implemented in Rentman. Notifications will pop up here. So simply click on the bell and you can directly see notifications popping up here. Right now, there's nothing popping up because I've already marked all of my notifications as red. Every user in Rentman can also set up the notification preferences. To do so, simply click on Preferences here. A new window opens up, and every user can choose how they want to be notified about what. There's a variety of notifications available in Rentman, the ones visible right here. And you can also choose if you would like to get notified via email through the Rentman mobile app. So you're going to get a push notification on your phone. Both Android and Apple devices work here. Or you can keep it in the web interface of Rentman. That's what we're looking at right now. And every user can set up their own notifications. Okay, so we've now finished adding all basic information in the General tab. Let's go ahead and actually add some equipment to this project. Before we do so, however, I want to mention one more feature that can make your life a lot easier, especially if you're working on larger projects. That feature being the sub-projects feature. We can open this feature by clicking on this little button right here. And what this allows us to do, if we have a larger event happening, say we have multiple breakout rooms, we have multiple areas, stages, tour stops, whatever it is, we can take one project and split it into multiple sub-projects. So we would go over here, add a new sub-project. We can add as many as we want, and we could, for example, have a sub-project for room 1, room 2, and room 3. Each sub-project can have its own equipment planning, its own crew and transport planning. It can also have its own time schedule, and we can even quote and invoice all of them separately or all of them together. As I said, that's a great tool to take a big project and split it into smaller chunks to make the overall management a lot easier. For now, we're going to focus on simple project planning. Moving on, let's add some equipment to this project. We hit the equipment tab, and we're directly going to see some details over here. On the left side, what we can see is our inventory and the way that we have set it up in the equipment section over here. So what we're looking at here is not set up within the project, but we set it up previously in the equipment section where we handle all of our inventory. And then Rentman simply pulls that information and displays it over here so we can then add it to our project on the right side here. You can see at this time we have not added any equipment to our project on the right side. On the left side, we can now see the way that we have set up our inventory and equipment section. You can see we are using folders and subfolders for it. We can also directly search for equipment. So we can just go up here and type in whatever we're looking for. The search results are instant, and we can directly choose what to plan. Now, how do we actually choose to plan some equipment onto our project on the right side here? Now, important to understand is that we always want to start off by categorizing our equipment first. How do I add a new category, or how we call it, group, to a project? It's a pretty simple process. We simply go up here, click on this mask right here, and then we type in the way how we would like to categorize our equipment in this project. A traditional way of doing it that a lot of our users use is that we simply go in here and, for example, enter equipment group called audio, hit enter on your keyboard, and it's directly added to a project. We can then move on and add other groups called lighting and video. You can categorize your equipment this way. However, you're free to choose how you would like to categorize. You could also go with something like, day 1, day 2, and then add the gear that you need for day 1 into the respective group and the gear that you need for day 2 into the other group. You're free to choose how you want to categorize. You can make it dependent on the project. It's really up to you. For now, we're going to stick with the traditional way of structuring by audio, lighting, and video, or any other group that you might want to add. So let's delete those two. Simply select them, more actions, delete, confirm, and they're gone. So let's add some gear into our audio category up here. Now I'm going to add a few active speakers in here. I'm not going to pay too much attention if it all makes sense, excuse me. But yeah, let's add some equipment. Now, first of all, if I would like to add one piece at a time, the only thing I have to do is double click on it. Let me double click on it. There we go. And one flybar has been added. If I would like to add multiple pieces at once, super simple as well. Simply click into the quantity column right here, enter the number of items you need. Let's, for example, say 3, hit enter, and it's directly added into the project with the respective quantity showing up right here. Now, I can add individual items like that, but I can also set up equipment packages. I can do so, as I said, in the equipment section right here where I handle all of my inventory. If I would like to add a package to my project, I simply have to search for it. For example, we have a DJ kit down here. To plan it, again, just double click on it. And you can see that once I've added it, it looks a little different to the individual items that I've added. I can, for example, expand it, and the color is also different. If I expand it, you can see that by clicking once, I've directly planned 2 CDJs, a mixer, and a mic. And by doing so, I've cut down on the time it takes me to plan all of these individual items separately. So setting up these kits and packages in your equipment section is definitely going to make a difference in how fast you can get that quote out of the door. Of course, one thing that is essential when planning gear in this project is knowing if something is even available or not. Because right now what I've done, I've simply added gear, but I didn't really know if it was available. One tool that we have built to help you with that exact process is the equipment availability timeline. This timeline will show you what is available at what time, and you can open it by going up here and clicking on this little button with the clock. Once I click on that button and I click on whatever equipment I would like to add, let's go with the subwoofer right here, Rentman will show me some information down here in form of 2 bars. The first bar is your current availability. That tells me how much do I have in stock right at this moment. And the second is your overall warehouse stock. if we now look at some equipment that we've already added into a project, for example, this flybar, so if we select this piece right here, you're going to see that this down here looks a little different. Why does it look different? Well, our current availability at this time is only 1. Why is that? Well, what we own, our overall warehouse stock is 4, but we've already planned 3 on this project that we're working on right now. Let me briefly save that project as well. There we go. So this down here is going to always give you a real-time update on what equipment is available. If I go to my DTF10 here, I'm directly going to see my current availability is only 3. Why is that? Well, I have 4, but one of them has already been planned on our September event 2019 at this time. What this also means is that if you accidentally overplan equipment, let's for example take the switch here, and let's say I plan 20 of these switches, or let's say 5 of these switches on this project for whatever reason, I simply add 5 of them to the job, and you will directly be able to see that equipment that I've added onto a project where I don't have enough will directly turn red. So directly Rentman will alert you and say, hey, something is wrong here. Please take a look at this and, subrent it if necessary, or choose an alternative if you have any. If you have your timeline open, Rentman will also directly give you more details about this shortage. We're seeing that down here right now. You can now see that it's lighting up in red because we have a shortage of 3. Why is that? Well, we only have 2, but 5 of them we have planned on this job right here. So generally speaking, simply leave that timeline open at all times because it's the perfect way to see what do I have right now, what's my overall stock, and down here you will also see all projects that this piece of gear or this package has already been planned on. So let's go ahead and add a little bit more gear onto our project. I'm, as I said, just going to add random pieces here. Let's add a DJ booth. Let's also add 2 more wired mics. Where do we have them? There we go. Just so our quote is going to look a little bit better later on. And we're also going to go ahead and add a little bit of lighting, even though the equipment that I'm going to choose is probably not going to make too much sense. Let's add one of these, one of these, one of these, and one of these. There we go. I'm really just trying to make our quote look a little bit better. Perfect. Now you can see that some of the gear that we have added, we simply don't have available. And as I said before, these things are marked in red. Now let's, for example, assume that you would like to subrent all of these 3 items for this particular job. In Rentman, we can directly send a subrental request to another company. To do so, we simply mark the equipments that we would like to subrent by selecting their checkboxes. There we go. And then we go up here, click on more actions again, just like we did before, and then we click on sub-hire shortages. And this is the exact feature that will allow me to send that subrental request to another company. So let's select it. Rentman will now ask me, hey, do you already have created a subrental job for this project? Nothing is popping up here. So we will click on new sub-hire to create a new subrental request and send it out to our supplier. Let's do just that. Click on new sub-hire. And you can now see that Rentman works with tabs. For the new sub-hire, a new tab has been opened up, but I can always move back to our actual project that we were on just now. So it's easy to navigate back and forth. It's just like you're working in a browser. Now let's enter some details about this subrental request. We can give it a name. We can also choose the status of the subrental request. Let's stick with option for now. We can then enter our supplier. Again, if we have entered our supplier into our contact database already, they're most likely going to be in there already. So let's just enter their name. And let's say we're going to subrent this from AED Rent. Let's choose those guys. We can then also choose the location. Where do we need this gear? Are we going to pick it up? Are they going to deliver it? What's the case? Let's say we're going to go pick that up. Let's choose AED Rent as well. Perfect. We can now choose some more information. Our account manager, so that's me in this case, who's going to handle the subrental. Is there any reference that maybe was given to us? And then Rentman also directly allows you to enter what is this going to cost you to subrent this. Now in this case, you can see that we have here selected automatically calculate equipment price. With any piece of gear that you have in your Rentman database over here in equipment, you can also assign an average subrental price to it. Rentman will then take that average subrental price, depending on how many equipment items you've added, and directly calculate for you and say, hey, this is what it's most likely going to cost you to subrent all of this gear from this company. If that is not the actual subrental price that you will have to pay, not a problem. You can also just unselect this and then enter a different price up here. Let's just say it's going to cost us $500 US. If there's any additional costs associated to this project or to the subrental project, not a problem. If there's any transport costs, administration costs that you will be charged, just enter them down here. You will have your total cost. You can also choose how this will be delivered or if it will be delivered. right here. And you can also add an additional remark down here if there's anything else that you would like to add to this project in terms of a note. Great, we've entered our general details. We can now check again what equipment is it that we're subrenting. If in this moment we're realizing, hey, we need some other stuff, just choose it right here and add it to that subrental order. And now we can send out that subrental request to our supplier. How do we do that? So let's put it this way. There's two ways to send out a subrental request to another company. Let's assume that for some reason or for good reason, this company is already using Rentman. In this case, you click on this button up here and you can actually send a digital subrental request from your Rentman account to another Rentman user. The only thing you need to do is go down here, enter their Rentman account. This is one of my test accounts. Hit enter. And now you could directly send a subrental request from your Rentman account digitally to another account. The other party is going to get that request. They can see the equipment that you're requesting. They can map the requested equipment with what they have in stock, and they can also directly let you know if they have it available or not. Now, while this is the best way to send digital subrental requests, unfortunately, not everybody is using Rentman just yet. In that case, it's not a problem. Simply head back to the General tab right here, and then to create a PDF with that subrental information and send it out to a supplier, we're simply going here and click on Print Slip, and then we choose our custom document if we've already created a custom document for a subrental document, or we're going to go with the default document that we already provide you with. Let's go with that one. We select the default document. You can see a new tab opens up, and Rentman now directly is generating a subrental document for us that we can send out. It details all the information that we want to have on there, at least in my case, that is. And now we can also directly send out that email, that document via email. We simply go up here, click on email. We could also download the document if you prefer to do so. Click on email, and now we have a general email editor here. We can enter a subject line, who we're sending it to. We can set someone BCC, and then we can also directly send or enter an email message down here that we want to have as a body for this email. And then as a last step, simply click on send email, and the subrental request will be sent out to your supplier. Now, we're looking at this document right here, and I understand that the design that we have chosen for our subrental request might be different from what you are expecting. That's not really a problem, because the nice thing about Rentman is that we have a built-in template editor in the software that allows you to completely customize the branding of your documents, but also how much information and especially what information is shown down here. The nice thing about many other softwares, or nice thing in comparison to most other softwares out there, is that in Rentman, you don't need to have a programming or coding background to customize your templates. If we have a 30 or 40-minute session, we can show you how to use that template editor. It's pretty much drag and drop and really no rocket science. And we can show you how you can completely customize these things yourself. You can create as many templates as you want, and you can make your documents look the way you want them to look and also improve on your design with that built-in template editor. So let's assume we have sent out our subrental request. Let's head back to our project and continue working. We're going to close our subrental request up here, and we directly can save it right here to make sure that all information is in place. And we're heading back to a project right here where we started off. You can now also see that because we have chosen to subrent the equipment that we were short on, Rentman directly assumes it is now available. We can also access that information by, for example, selecting something that was marked as unavailable before, open the timeline. And now what we're going to see is that with that TXT screen, we actually didn't have any inventory for it, but we still planned one on our September event that we're working on. However, it is now not showing up as a shortage anymore because that subrental that we've just added is directly showing down here in our timeline as well. So again, simply leave the timeline open because it will show you all information about your availability in Rentman. Perfect. So we've added all information. We've added all of our equipment into a project. Let's move on to add some crew and transport. Clicking on our next tab. It is important to understand that crew and transport planning in Rentman are split into two separate parts. In the first part, the one that we're looking at right now, is we're not planning people, we're planning the types of jobs that we will need for this project. So we're not planning Ryan, but what we're actually doing is we're planning a light tech, a sound tech, and a system engineer. Because at this time in the project, we don't really know which freelancer or which full-timer in our team is going to be available, but we already know that we're going to need a sound tech and a light tech, and we also want to give our client an idea what they're going to have to pay for labor. So how do we add these types of crew and transport jobs? The process is pretty much the same to adding equipment. We're now going to go over here and we're going to add a new group to our project. Again, we want to start off by categorizing our jobs. Categorizing here is pretty simple. We simply choose how to categorize. So let's, for example, say we would like to plan some people for the load-in. So we simply go in here, add a category called load-in. Now, we've now entered the name for the category, but when does this load-in actually happen? We have not connected it to a time yet. To connect the categories in the crew and transport section to a time, what we have to do is we have to go over here and click on this button right here. It doesn't matter what the button says, simply click on it. And then a new tab opens up. And what we can now do is we can now choose from our time schedule that we have set up in the general tab when that load-in is happening. Now, if you remember, we already set up a load-in time in our time schedule, in our general time schedule before. So now what we can simply do is we can choose from these times right here in a drop-down and say, well, the load-in that I'm trying to set up here, that is going to start at the load-in and is also going to end at the end time of the load-in. So what we're doing now is we're assigning a time to this load-in, but what we're also doing, and that's even more important, we are assigning this load-in to the time that we've added in the general tab. There we go. The load-in is now happening from 10:30 until 11:30. What this also means is that if, for example, there is a change to the load-in hours, right? If it's, for example, happening a half an hour earlier or half an hour later, what you will have to do is you will simply have to go back to the general tab here and change the load-in time down here. And you will only have to do it once because we have just connected this time down here to our load-in category here. The time here will automatically change to any changes that we have made in the general tab before. So you won't have to make changes to the times in every section of Rentman. You make the change once in the general tab and it will directly update information here as well and inform you about it. Perfect. So what kind of jobs do we need for the load-in? I don't think really I have a job that fits here, but let's just say we're going to plan 2 builders for the load-in. So again, what we do is we simply go over here. It's simply to planning equipment. I say I would like to plan 2 builders, enter 2, hit enter, and 2 builders have been added. Now, these jobs over here, I understand that they're going to be different for you. And this is pretty much just a demo database that we have in the demo version of Rentman that I'm working on right now. These jobs you can completely set up yourself. And please be aware that these jobs right here, they're going to pop up next to every project. So it's a global setting that you're setting up here. If you would like to edit the jobs in your Rentman account, simply go here and click on edit, click on a crayon, click on edit. If there's no jobs in your system at this time, you can also add new jobs by simply clicking on the add button up here and then adding information about it. You can first of all choose how that job name will pop up on a quote, invoice, or contract. That's the external name. The internal name is what you will see on packing slips or call sheets. So you can choose to have a different name here. And then there's a few more details you can enter, but pretty much the most important thing are the rental and sub-hire costs. Let me briefly explain what they are. Now, the rental costs are essentially what is the price for the client for this type of job? What are you expecting that this is going to cost in terms of labor? You can here choose a fixed rate, or you can choose an hourly rate that will then be added on top of the fixed rate. You can also just go with an hourly rate and leave the fixed rate blank. Then we have the sub-hire costs. And this pretty much means how much is this going to cost you? So what are you expecting you have to pay, a sound tech or a light tech as a fixed rate or as an hourly rate? So these sub-hire costs, that's what is it going to cost you. The rental costs, that's the price for the client, either as a fixed rate or as an hourly rate or as an hourly rate on top of the fixed rate. I hope this makes sense. For now, let's cancel out because we don't want to add another job. However, let's add some additional jobs to this project because we don't just need these jobs for the load-in. We also need some for the show. So let's go up here and add a new category called show. And now we would like to associate the show to a time again. Go over here, click on usage period. And now we can simply choose from our time schedule when the show was happening. If you remember, we also added a show time in the general tab, and that's our usage period. So that's when the actual equipment will be used. So let's go over here and say, well, the show is from the start of the usage period until the end of the usage period. Rentman has chosen that automatically for me here already. If for some reason the show lasts a little longer than what we've entered in the usage period in the general tab, not a problem. We can also still make changes to that manually right here. But let's stick with what we set up before. Save that. Again, we have a new category. This time it's happening on the 25th from 8 until 4 p.m. And now let's say we need during this time a sound tech, a light tech, and also one systems engineer. There we go. And that's already it. That's the way how we assign the jobs to our project, and then at a later stage, in particular in the planning section, that's when we're then going to invite actual people and freelancers to these jobs that we've added before. Again, this is supposed to help you with the planning, and this is also the labor costs that are going to pop up on your client's quote. Let's go ahead and save that and move on. The additional cost section, I don't think I need to talk too much about this. This is just pretty much a place where you can enter anything that doesn't really fit with equipment or crew and transport. As I mentioned before, think about something like, travel or hotel expenses here. If you would like to add that to the quote and invoice, simply hit the add button here, and then you can give it a name, how much you paid for it, the purchase price, and how much you're charging the client, the sales price. Taxable details, and then simply save it to add it as an additional cost. Moving on, we're at the end of the project planning. We're now in the financial tab. Now the financial tab shows you a few details. First of all, it lists all of the different categories that you have in your project: rental, sale, crew, transport, additional costs, and insurance if you would like to add any. We can then see our costs for every category. We can also see our revenue for each of these categories. And Rentman also gives us the possibility to give a discount for each of these categories. Maybe we want to give a discount on our rental items. Maybe we want to give a discount on the items that we're selling in this job. It is possible to do so here. Most importantly, Rentman also details the profit that you have per category over here and the total profit, of course, down here, excluding tax. We can also choose to switch to the profit margin here if that gives us a better idea if we're making money or losing money. In the end, the totals are provided per category. Down here, Rentman also gives you the total excluding tax. We can choose our tax rate right here. If your tax rate is not available here, simply go over here to configuration and tax schemes, and that's where you can add your own tax rates, so you can choose them right here in a project. In the end, depending on the tax rate you've chosen, you will get a total including tax. And yeah, we can move from there. One more feature that I would like to point out here is that, let's say you've made a deal with the client and this is not going to be $2,604, but $2,500, not a problem. Simply enter the number you want it to be, hit enter, and Rentman directly calculates the discount for you without requiring you to do all of the calculating. Moving on, we can enter a deposit down here if that applies to this project. We can also choose our invoice moments. These invoice moments you can also set up and customize under configuration. Invoice moments pretty much define what the payment instances for your client for this project are going to be. You can see we already have one in here that is 100% upfront. Under configuration, you could also set up 50% after, 50% upfront, or 25%, 25%, 50, depending on how you handle payments. And then you can simply choose here which one applies to this project. Afterwards, we can also choose the terms and conditions, so your rental contract that is going to be displayed on your quotation. These terms and conditions, again, are something that you can set up under configuration, additional conditions. If you, for example, have different conditions for a corporate event or a dry hire or a festival, simply set them up under configuration, and then depending on the type of event you're working on, go here and choose from the dropdown which terms and conditions apply. Perfect. So now we've entered all of our information for this project. We've added general information, we've added the equipment we most likely going to need, crew and transport, additional costs, and we ended up in the financial section where we also gave them a little discount. How do we make this into a quote? The process is pretty simple. Simply go up here, click on print slip, and then you can choose to create a quote, contract, or invoice. At this stage, we're going to go with a quote, so simply select that. Rentman will open up a new tab. Again, we can always navigate back and forth. And it's now, I should have maybe saved before, going to generate that document for us. There we go. And we have our first quote ready. Now, remember how I told you before that in Rentman, you can completely customize your templates. So the templates essentially choose how much information is displayed on it. Right now, we're using a template that is called compact. You can see that up here. And it is really a compact template. It doesn't give your client a lot of information. It simply gives you the categories that you have and then the total down here. It doesn't even give you labor information. For some clients, that might be the right way to display information, but in most cases, I assume you want to display a little bit more. To change how much information is shown, you simply go up here and choose a different template. You can choose a custom one that you have set up already, or you go with the extended one right here, choose that, then simply hit regenerate. And now Rentman is going to extend the information on your quote, depending on what you've added into your project. You can directly see the extended quote gives you a lot more information. It shows the unit price, factor price, your crew information down here, and in the end, the total. So again, What the template editor in Rentman allows you to do is you can create customized document for every type of client that you have. Some might want to see more information, some might want to see less information. Some clients you don't want to show more information because there's going to be too many questions. So in that case, maybe go for something like the no individual prices template. Choose it, regenerate it, and now we're going to get an extended quote, but without the line item prices. And because this is so simple, it's not going to take you a lot of time to create a custom quote for every client. Simply set up some document templates, which is also something we can help you with in a 30 or 40-minute demo. And then you can simply choose for every client how you would like to set up your quotations or contracts or invoices. Now, let's go ahead and send out that quote to our client. It's just like sending out a subrental request. Go up here, click on email or download the file. And again, we have the normal email editor, enter a subject line, address, BCC. You have an attachment already, that's the quotation we just generated, but you can also add more attachments, so files that you've already attached to the project. And then down here, you can enter your actual email body. You can even go as far in Rentman as setting up your own email templates, so you don't have to type at all anymore. These email templates can be set up and then saved, and then you simply have to go down here and choose which template you would like to use. There we go. And now the last step would be to simply click on send email to send it out to your client. Now your client will get that quotation. They will then give you a call and confirm it, or even easier, if you're looking to make use of this feature, it's for free by the way, you can include a digital signature button on your quotations. This is the button that we're seeing down here. In the end, what your client will then simply have to do is click on this button right here, and they will then be redirected to your personal signature page. This signature page will have a picture of your choice that you can always have pop up here. It will also have your logo popping up on top here. And then the only thing your client needs to do is click on I agree, enter their name, their email, and their signature. They can add a remark if necessary, and then they can directly accept that quote online. Once they have accepted the quote, they can directly download a signed copy of it. In addition to that, a signed copy of that quote will directly send to you by email, and a signed copy of that quote is directly attached, if we go back to the general tab right here, as a file to the project once it has been signed. In this case, because we did not sign the quote yet, it's simply not popping up down here. Perfect. So this was a quick overview of the quoting process in Rentman. As I said, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to our support team. Again, you can reach them at support@rentman.io or go and check out our support center. You can find it at support.rentman.io. Thanks a lot.